Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad to hear with us this morning. Everybody hanging in there and grabbed the root and held on, and we're gonna be fine. Just keep on hanging in there. Let's look at our weather. High today, 82, low 75. Water temperature did drop 2 degrees. It's down to 83.5. So, I mentioned yesterday I thought it was stuck. So they must have heard me. Probably went out at the end of the pier and jiggled it. So now it's 83.5. So that is the first time we've had a little 2-degree drop now. So that's interesting. We'll talk more about that later. Our river reading is brought to us by Mountain Dew. Get out and do. The Appalachian School of Brunstown actually shows it's dropping a little bit. It's down below 6 foot now, about a 5.8 and 5.6, and dropping out. The Choctaw at Caryville, we know what's going to happen over there. That's at a 5.4, and it's going up, and it's going to be going up for a couple of days. We've talked about it. Just be aware of what's going on, and stay tuned into all of the flood watches and everything. Just stay on top of that. Okay, and I know you local folks will do that. Sometimes people be camping or something, don't know exactly what's going on. So try to help out if they're from out of town or something. Help them out, let them know that can get to high ground. All right, our tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. We have a high tide this morning at 9:29 and a low at 6:50. Like I said yesterday, great tides today, but when this weekend not going to be good fishing with tides or river, so be aware of that. Our wind coming still out of south-southeast about 25. And we're going to be another day or two, and we're going to, we're doing the best we can. Jeff and I we've been doing Plan B and Plan C, but we hanging in here. So we're going to take a break. and We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I've been mentioning all along since Eric and Michael, especially within the past year, about these dead pine trees all over the place and falling over on a regular basis. Now they really started falling, and it's landowner's responsibility if your trees are dead. I mean, that's your trees that fall on the neighbor's house or on a line. Like, check this picture out right here. This is my house. I'm in my yard looking, and my neighbor's tree fell on my line there, on our line, our neighborhood, and that little tree right there. I heard a big old pop, and you know the story. You go outside, flashing, my transformer up in the left-hand corner, it's flashing away. Well, all of us lose power from it. One little tree, look how skinny that thing is, but it just hit it with enough force, it just sort of knocked it into it. So Gulf Coast Electric Co-op so good about coming out in a fairly reasonable, pretty quick too. Those guys work hard. Anyway, I put this up here just so, I've taken out all my dead trees. We've cut them down. I did some myself, and I paid some guys to do some. So all of y'all, now if it's out there in the middle of 40 acres, don't worry about it. That's nature taking care of itself. But if it's going to hit somebody's house and something or knock the power out, please be responsible, or tell your neighbor to be responsible. Just mention this right here real quick. Coming up October 3rd, the Emerald Coast Redfish Circuit. I want to mention it because there's a good group of guys and girls that fish this thing, and this is going to be at Carl Gray Park on October 3rd. So the weigh-in will be at 3. I'm certainly going to try to get to that weigh-in over there at Carl Gray Park. And then one more picture. This is a good story here on Panama City Fishing page. Called out of work last night because after Michael, my wife's terrified of anything tropical. I forgot to turn off my alarm, so we went and got breakfast. And she wanted to go see the water, so we rode to the bridge, and I couldn't resist throwing a line and looked up on a 26 3/4 inch of red, and my first shark. Also picked up 2.5 gallon, 2 5-gallon bucketfuls of trash, and half of those were buckets with fishing lines, so please pick up your trash. And I don't know this fellow's name, but I like his attitude. His wife wants to go look at the rough water, so let me take my pole, honey, and look at the redfish. And then the shark. So that was just yesterday, and that's cool right there. I love the story. And the trash. He's good enough to pick up trash, and I see so many outdoorsmen, including a lot of my friends and all, and Michael Harris and his group. Outdoorsmen are the ones picking up the trash, and it's the low life is out throwing it out. So pick up your trash, especially around that bridge area and all, because Anyway, it's a mess. Listen, all this rainy day, I always try to do rainy day activities. I guess since I was a kid, try to do rainy day activities that has something to do with everything I do has something to do with outdoors, seems like. But all this stuff was in my toolbox. Okay, I got it all here. See, all this stuff right here was in my truck toolbox, and it was just a mess. And the bungee cords and all. So anyway, I cleaned up my toolbox, and I wanted to show you, we talked about bungee cords and straps and all, and what happened. They all look neat now, but I wanted to show you what I've started doing. I did this yesterday. I just thought about it. I'm going to show you what I did. This is all. You can imagine about 15 of these, maybe not quite that many. All kind of stuff, all tangled up with string and all this stuff. So I took everything out and put a tie strap. This is, you've got to be organized and outdoors. So you always need some kind of rope and all. If you're in outdoors, you know what I'm talking about. And just put some kind of little strap around it. Now, isn't that really pretty right there? I did all those, okay? But on these, what I started doing, I just figured this out real quick. I wore my matching shirt today. See that right there? I just started wrapping around it. Okay, and then I got it wrapped around right there. And then what I did when I got to the end right here, I put it in a loop right there. And look at there, all neat, not gonna get tangled. And then I put it up, okay. And these, okay, because I got a little container. I put all this stuff in a container. And then I had a little bungee cord, these straps here. I got them from Brad at Sunjammers. These straps are great. I got tape on this one. But these straps right here are ideal if you're a truck guy and you hauling stuff and you go to Lowe's or Home. I go to Home Depot. I don't go to Lowe's anymore, but you just load up stuff and all. You always need straps or stuff and all. Now I've got it all figured out except what to do with my bungee cords in the back of my truck and toolbox. So if y'all come, I tried wrapping them up. If y'all come up with a good idea how to put like 8 or 9 of these in the toolbox without them getting tangled. If you got a good idea, let me know. I'll share it with everybody. I tried wrapping them up like this and all, but they just won't stay. They put it until they come out like that. So anyway, I've tried all kinds of things. So if you got a good idea on how to keep your bungee cords from tangling up in the toolbox, let me know and I'll share it with all the viewers. But anyway, rainy day activities for the outdoorsman. I enjoy doing stuff like that. And a lot of times you never take time to do it until you just flat out can't go outside like we've had the last couple of days. And you go, what can I do? What can I do? And so I cleaned up my truck toolbox and needed it very much. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I got a bunch of these that were put together like that. Okay, we'll take our break and be right back. Okay, welcome back. We often talk about our heritage and history of different parts and all. I know a lot of y'all have an appreciation of it, and most of the time we're talking about the waterfront and everything going on around the waterfront, but we have so much rich history inland in North Florida and South Alabama and all with the logging industry. And they came in with the cuts and all. At one time, my granddad was one of those old sawmill guys, and they cut these big old trees and out. That was all through the southeast. I read an interesting book on the history of the early logging, and it was those guys were something else. And even as it started in the southeast, and then as it went out west, some of the big trees out on the Pacific coast up around that area. Of course, now a lot of those are protected. But anyway, just early logging. So I've got a little video coming up, and what's good about that is just here locally and the big pine trees and all. If you look at any kind of history book here, had these guys that would walk this circuit, and they would get the what we call turpentine, and they'd walk around, and the trees were like cut like that. And I know you've seen them all. And, the old timers called them a cat face because it sort of looked like a cat face with a smile on it. So this little video, I had a friend. I talked about it one day on the show several years back, and a friend of mine brought me one by the. It's still in my house. Been through the hurricanes and all, and I just think a unique piece of nature and all. So this little 5-minute video will give you a little bit of history of it. So Jeff, let's run this video. You know, we've talked a lot about our heritage here on our show, and we're very proud of our heritage. Of course, right down here on the waterfront, it's centered around the old fishermen and the old boats and everything that went along in there. But also, we have a strong heritage up on the inland area, South Alabama, South Georgia, and a lot of the timber business and all that. my dad, when I was growing up, my dad would take us walking through the woods and all of a sudden he'd say, "Look at that cat face," and we look over and all I'd see would be a dead tree. I was a young kid at that time, and we'd walk a little bit further. That was another cat face, and he'd chuckle, and finally he explained to my brother and I what he was talking about. The cat face was a cutting on some old wood, on an old piece of timber. So to give you the history on it, it started back the longleaf pine industry. Of course, all we had in 1800s were wooden boats across America, and the boats were important because of the War of 1812 and all the, all that we had to patrol our waterfront. So the wooden boats were very important to not just the protection of our country, but of the industry itself and shipping items across the ocean. So repairing those wooden boats was important. So what they found was a turpentine in the pine tree, and longleaf pine was just so important. It was sticky, it would plug the holes, it would seal the cracks in the leaky boats and all. So it was called the naval stores industry. And a lot of times you see pictures along a dock, you see big old wooden barrels, and it would be full of what we call turpentine. It's been called different names, but locally we always call it turpentine. And what the cat face comes from, these guys would walk through the woods and find a big old longleaf pine tree, and they would take a big old, like a machete, and they would cut it. And notice what they would do, they would cut it at an angle. They'd cut really deep right here and cut really deep right here. And cut all the way down, just keep cutting it, cut all the way down to the bottom. And at the bottom of the tree, they would have usually a little clay pot to collect the sap that would be running down the tree. It would run down into here, and this piece sort of broken off, so it would run down into here, and guys would walk by about every week or so, or different times, and take this and pour it in the container that went with them. And they'd make a big old circuit through the woods. Now also, if you notice this little metal piece right here, this is the last remnant, they had little metal plates, just like this, at an angle, embedded in here. So the sap would run down the middle, just like that, into the plate. If they do that, then later they come back later and they would make a deeper cut to get more of the flow. And this is a second cut. See that right here? And thus the cat face. And if you look at it, use your imagination, it sort of looks like a cat face. And they would come back and make even deeper cuts, and they would do that for a while. I want to thank Ralph Turner, one of our loyal viewers. He and I ran into each other back a little while ago, and we were talking about this. He said, there's an old tree up there around Bear Creek, got a cat face on it. And I laughed. I said, you don't see those anymore. Well, lo and behold, I came home the other day, and this was in my backyard. Ralph had cutting it up and brought it to me so we can share it with our viewers. And also, I'm going to take it to school and share it with my students, tell them the history and the heritage and the importance of it. Now, it is so important to remember, these guys, this was started in the late 1800s here in the Florida Panhandle. What happened, they started running out of big trees in the Carolinas because they're also cutting them for shipbuilding, and so they went on and worked their way down through Georgia and ended up in North Florida, the industry itself. And they would have like labor camps. Sometimes they would use prisoners to do this. But they didn't get the people that did it for a living, they didn't make a lot of money. Usually they're working for the company store and just get paid a little bit for the company store. Really hard work. They'd drop them off. Dad told me they would drop them off. This was like in the 1920s and 30s. At a point here, and they'd have a big old pot with them, and they'd all day long, they'd have a little sandwich or some kind of stuff with them. They'd walk through the woods and go to these different trees and collect the sap, pour it in a container, then walk another half mile or so, just collect it all along through. And late in the afternoon, they'd get picked back up on the old dirt road and go back to the camp and get some sleep, get back up next morning, do it again. Hard work, really hard work. But this is so important at that point in time to our shipping industry, was to have this kind of material. Also, I'm going to turn this around the back side of it. Look at this. This is also called fat lighter, and you can see we get splinters and all. This great lighter. If I wasn't going to use this for display, I'd be cutting it in pieces and making some fires with it during the winter time. But this is what people get, those stumps and all, and all kind of chemicals are in that. And they use it for paints and all kind of stuff as an industry, and that's a story on the old cat face. So if you ever heard that term among people in the woods and all, that's come from an old tree. And if you find one, let me know. I think it's just fascinating that part of our history and heritage is still around, but not much of it. You can see here where some of the rosin is hardened, And of course, they did use it for baseball rosin bags. That's where it came from, right here. A little woodpecker hole too. And that's part of our heritage and history along the Florida Panhandle. Okay, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that little segment. That's part of our rich heritage here in the Florida Panhandle. And let's take a look now at our fishing game times. We're looking from Blue Water Outriggers in Port St. Joe. One time at 11:07 to 1:07. So if you want to get on a boat, just don't do it, okay? Now, I want to, the first segment we talked about fishing, the middle segment a little bit about the history, and now this segment let's talk about hunting. So we try to spread it all out in a true outdoorsman fashion. The Woods and Water magazine, you've heard me talk about it before. I really like this magazine in the early years. I've been following it for years. And what they do, every September, they'll come in and do a lot of their stories are hitting the area east of us, between Tallahassee and Gainesville area, Perry, and South Georgia. And then they touch on this area too, but it's that sort of the Big Bend area. So I know it well. But each year they will do the top 10 bucks taken in Florida according to the FWC, the scores and all, official scores. And in fact, so I like to read. And what I like about it, not necessarily the pictures, I love looking at the pictures of these huge bucks, but I love reading the stories because they interview each hunter that in the top 10 or let them tell their story. And they tell it in their own words. And I enjoy reading that because it's real life people getting out there in the woods and, a little bit of luck and a lot of skill. And so here's a picture right here. This comes out. I'm going to show you pictures out of the book. This is their listing. What I want you to sort of concentrate on now, I always talk about the counties. Okay, this is last year's top 10. Look at the counties. This is a surprise. Number 1 buck came out of Hardy County. Number 2 buck, Leon, Hamilton, Polk, Madison. Those top 5, you don't have anybody in Panhandle, but whoa, look at the next one. Jackson, Osceola, that's down around Orlando. Then Jackson. Next 3 are Jackson County. And then the bottom one, number 10, Hillsboro. That's around Tampa. So anyway, what I wanted to do, I'm going to take each story and tell you about them because how to spread out. I was interested. Nothing came west of us. Jackson County, boy, they dominated. 4 out of the top 10 came out of Jackson County. And old Billy Grantham name was mentioned in here about some of these hunters about what a great guy he was. Just made everybody feel at home. You can see Billy doing that up there in the Appalachia area. So anyway, we're going to take them one time. I'm not going to have time to do all 10 of them on this show, but I don't want to rush through it. I want to do them justice. So here's the first one here, Buck of the Year. This is, in fact, this made the cover, and you can see how big it is. This is Hardy County. But and each one of these stories now, like right here, that's the score sheet, the actual score sheet. I scored 150 and 7/8, so that's pretty big. Anyway, this is Carl Grubbs, and I've hunted in Florida all my life. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you're going to notice some similarities. This showed up in October of 2018 on a trail camera. That's one of the things right there. You're going to see a lot of similarities on trail cameras, okay? They fed them Purina antler mix, and then it showed up again. So anyway, Bartow, Carl Grubbs of Bartow. That's some good folks down there in Bartow. Okay, that's the number 1 buck of the year, okay? Good job there. In fact, he told the whole story, and they gave him 2 pages since he got buck of the year. And he was just overwhelmed. And I love reading their stories. He got them on a weekday. Okay, and so anyway, number 2 buck, you see, this is number 2 buck right here. And this is Tony Wallace. And this was down in Hamilton County with a muzzle loader. Hamilton County, and that's around Mayo, okay? And they had the camera, first paragraph had the buck on camera in 2018. He was 3.5 years old. And he went on up there, and he got him. He knew he was mature, and they were able to watch him. Okay, and then took the shot with a muzzle loader. Congratulations! I love to see making the top 10 with a muzzle loader. Okay, now let's go to number 3 buck. This was interesting here. Now this is Tony. Let's see, where did he get his from? What county? All right. Anyway. He was Lake Wales. Now, this was interesting because I read this story, And he and his dad were at lunch. This top paragraph right here. My dad and I were at lunch one day, and we were going through pictures. We were trying to decipher what the deer was doing. Then we finally realized the deer would come in at daylight hour when the wind was above 20 miles per hour. Now, isn't this interesting? Because usually they say they're not going to do anything. And every time a severe thunderstorm was coming through, the wind was howling, we got pictures of him. Now, let's stop right there. Now, this goes against common deer sense, where wind blowing and trees bending, you're not going to see a buck. Well, that's when they started seeing them, and the trail camera proved that, because in the camera, like I said, you could see the wind blowing the trees, and they knew it was windy. So what he did, he was smart. What he did, he went on in here and he realized at lunch a pattern. He and his dad sitting there having lunch. So he said a storm was coming in, so he just packed his stuff up. And anyway, the wind was blowing. He came in about 4:30, so it got him in bad weather. Okay, so that was what they called a bad weather bruiser. He got him in the middle of a storm. Isn't that interesting? All right, now he's a buck of a lifetime. Derek wrote a good story here, and he was struggling to find. 9 months later, I'm struggling to find the words. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for a family who taught me practically everything I know about the woods and wildlife management. I'm incredibly grateful for the experience and that I'm even able to share the story. Okay, so that in itself tells me what kind of guy Derek is. This is over Madison County. There's some fine bucks in Madison County. This is the number 4 buck, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm not going to have time to. He scored 141 right there, 141. And anyway, look at that one. That's a nice one. But I love Derek's attitude and what he said about outdoors. So anyway, we got those 4, and we'll finish the next 6 probably not tomorrow. We're going to have a video tomorrow, maybe Friday morning. We'll try to finish up on the top 10 bucks taken in Florida and the stories behind them. So I hope you enjoy me sharing them with you, because it shows some similar patterns and all. As we go through it, I'm going to write down some of the same patterns we've talked about. But that bad weather buck was interesting. Hope you have a great day today. Do something good for your fellow man. Enjoy the outdoors, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.